It's Tuesday. It's 7 p.m. That means it's time for Live with Simone.
Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a great time with family and friends during the holidays and everybody stayed safe and probably played some pickleball. But exciting times as the year 2022. And here's fingers crossed that is a good one for everyone in many different ways, right? Not just pickleball, but everything in general. But anyways, tonight we have something different, being the new year, and me as well, taking a little time off and being with my family. I've been doing a lot of yard work. It's a lot of reflecting and just kind of thinking about what are some of the things that I want to accomplish in 2022. So with that in mind, what we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk about goal setting, which I do often, and to me is one of the most important things when it comes to any athlete out there. Just because if you don't have goals, you're just kind of going through the motion and not really thinking about what is it that you want to get out of what you're doing. And I think I know I'm a list maker, so I make, lists about everything, things that I have to do on a day-to-day, things that I have to do weekly. And again, I'm trying to stay in the moment as well, which is very, very important. So we'll talk a lot about that. And then also I have a special guest for you guys tonight, maybe two, we'll see. But anyway, Eddie, I'm going to start with you here. So some of the things that I think most our successful business do, they set goals, and not just outcome goals, but also performance goals. So with the company that you work with, and you can feel free to advertise Dan Gilbert's company here. What are some of the things that you guys talk about?
Yeah, actually, so I work for Rocket Mortgage, formerly Quicken Loans, full time, and we're all about goal setting. And we have, key results that we try and go after, especially in IT. And a lot of them are very specific, but I think what's important about them is that it's not so much about what the end goal is. I think a lot of times people, when they're making goals, they're so focused on these lofty goals. I want to lose 80 pounds. It's like, okay, well, what are the steps that you're going to be able to take to get there? And so what I like to do personally is focus more on the process rather than so much hanging on the end result, especially when it's things that I can't control. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's kind of the way that I look at
Yeah, no,
setting.
absolutely. No, absolutely. And I think that that's extremely important. I mean, we talk about, I think that is a big one. So really quickly, I'll go through this. I am cheating because again, I used to do this a lot in college, came from my college playing days. Where my coach used to, like, at the beginning of the year, we always did that. And then it carried on for me to do it with my players as well. So set SMART goals. And what that means is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. There's something called stretch goals. And that's something that, like, okay, I'm aiming for the sky, because of course you always want to have those goals that, okay, this is going to be really hard, but if I do these things, potentially I can achieve them. And of course they're very rewarding. But that's also why it's so important to have specific and realistic goals, because otherwise you become very frustrated if you can't achieve the goals that you set. Again, you want to make sure that you're not like low bar, but you also don't want to go like, okay, this is way off. So when it comes to that, performance goals. So performance goals are what will help you with your so performance goals is what will help you achieve your outcome goals. So to me, like for instance, and I'll talk like really briefly about what I am trying to accomplish here. So for me, my performance, I want to get healthier. So process, how am I going to do that? Rehab, strengthening, conditioning. Those are big. So rehab first, of course, and then strengthening and conditioning will follow. So that way I can get, continue to get healthier and healthier. The other one, it would be attacking off the bounce. That's something that I've been working on, just kind of different looks, different spots, so better spots against different players. And how am I going to do that? It will be with drilling, a lot of one-on-one drilling. There's also 2-on-1s, always great. And then working on my technique, working on my body positioning, being more aggressive. So that's kind of like taking the balls off the bounce. That's part of being more aggressive, but also putting away balls. I feel like sometimes like, oh my gosh, I can't even crack an egg. So, and again, that will come with the strengthening upper body. I've been working on strengthening my upper body, and that is a big part of it. But also with drill, just kind of like, okay, I need to really start to accelerate more, work on my point of contact, not swinging so big. So those are my performance goals. And then when it comes to my outcome goals, because this year I have, it should be a lot of fun. That is always part of it. I want to be competitive and I want to win, but I also want to enjoy myself, my time on the court. And I'm so excited because I do have a bunch of different partners. So with outcome, I want to make sure that I medal with all of the partners that I'm playing. And then I want to win, again, I haven't put a number on how many. I usually do have a number on how many gold medals I want to get, because again, I haven't established my schedule fully yet, but I always think about like, okay, how many do I want to win? And then because again, I want to go stretch on that, and then kind of like, okay, if this is more realistic, and go from there. Mixed doubles, women's doubles. So with that, talking about setting goals and with all of my different partners, here's a blast from the past. Even though we haven't played together in a long time, this is one of my partners this year. So we played a lot together. Corinne and I started playing, how long ago was that? Like 6 years.
Yeah.
So we started playing together, and we played for 3 years, 4 years almost. We did get a lot of gold. I wish it was like real gold. Then retirement will be a lot easier. But yeah, so we're playing. Right now for sure we're gonna try to play maybe one, maybe two, maybe more. Who knows? So, I think that being a professor, you kind of know as far as like goal setting, that is.
I am a big goal setter.
Yes, and I think that comes from probably the teaching, but also from playing. Back in the day, playing golf.
Oh yeah, growing up, I always had goals for golf, and then also I was very goal oriented in school. So and it's funny because I'm competitive, but I'm not just competitive in sports. I was also competitive in school with my grades. So, and
that is self in a way, because with grades, you're like, you can only be yourself in that.
Yeah.
And you have like, okay, how can I do better? So, so talking about goals, like what are some of the goals that you have for this year? Like all of it.
Well, in terms of my performance, so for tournaments, you have a big schedule again this year, but would love to do well with my partners. I'm playing with Adam in mixed doubles pretty much the whole year, and then Vivian, David, and Sarah Ansberry. So I cut down on last year with the number of partners. I was kind of all over the place. But would love to deal with Adam. I think last year we started strong and then it kind of tapered off a bit. But we're lucky because we can play together, practice together, we drill together, and we discuss the game a lot with each other. So we're very much on the same page. So I think
Perfect.
being able to perform is definitely a possibility. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. And then I love playing with Vivian and Sarah. We mesh really well on the court.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with them. So I think with them as well, I would love to medal. I would shoot for more medals than with Adam.
I think he's done here. He will be. He will, yeah.
Mainly because mixed doubles is just so competitive.
Yeah.
It's very hard to medal in mixed doubles, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it's reasonable to shoot for more medaling in women's. But there are some things that I need to work on. I know, in pickleball, the world is really kind of small, so we play each other all the time. So my weaknesses, I'm pretty sure everybody knows what they are. The big ones are definitely, I'm very vulnerable being attacked at the body. So I'm working on that, and there's really only two options: either slide to the side and either hit a backhand or forehand, or I've got to try to develop some sort of a defense, backhand punch, which I tried that, and I'm not sure I'll ever have the strength in my arm to do it. Yeah. So, but either way, it's definitely something I need to improve. And I'm a little bit vulnerable on the backhand side in general. I'm not very good at attacking kind of mid-range balls at the kitchen out of the air with my backhand, so definitely working on that.
Well, I was going to say about body attacks, nobody better to practice with than Adam. It's like, okay, there you go.
Yeah, but I think it's a little bit sensitive because he doesn't want to, hit me in the face.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, this is not going to stay here on the court, and that might go on for the rest of the day.
I mean, occasionally I will get hit, and I might hold it against him a little bit.
Whoops.
Yeah, but it is great practice. And
yes,
if I ever want somebody to bang the ball at me, it's great.
Perfect. Yeah, off the bounce, out of the air, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's always good to add weapons. So I'm working on a few other new shots.
Perfect.
Which I'll keep those to myself. So
that's the secret. Yes.
So at least they can be a surprise in the first tournament or two.
There you go. It's like, wow, look at you. But that's the best. I think that's the thing about any sport, is that you can always implement something new. I'm sure that in golf, like you didn't just stay linear, stay the same, because you're like, okay, as new players come into the game and the game itself changes, you have to adapt with it. And that's the thing, that's how, in a way, like competitiveness kicks in. It's like, okay, I'm not satisfied with this. How do I get better? Yeah. So that's amazing.
And we've been playing the game now for a while, and we've seen it change so much. So yes, you have to develop with the sport, otherwise you get left behind.
Yeah, I remember like the first few months we were like thinking, what is that? Oh, you need to learn how to do that?
Third shot drop. I didn't know what that was.
Oh, it's
until like 6 months later.
We were like, oh, that's why people do this. Yeah. Okay, now we understand. Yeah. But again, it's like now it's in a way it's come full circle, because the drives that we used to drive all the time, but we kind of were all over the place. It was just reckless driving. And now people are much better at driving, and Ian gets used a lot more. But I think also it's much more in the sense of setting it up for an easier fifth, where we were driving just to thinking like, oh, we're going to win the point with this drive. Right. So definitely I think that's been a huge change for the game. So, but anyway, since I got Corinne here, I was thinking that for anyone that is out there, if you guys have any questions or anything that pertain to pickleball, of course, please feel free, and anything about goal setting that you have questions. I'm sure, Eddie, you have plenty.
Yeah, and like I said, like somebody just mentioned, go ahead and make sure you're putting them there in the chat. But I actually have one that I'm hoping I can kick it off with. Would that be okay with you guys?
Absolutely.
So Corinne, you have experience in both playing golf and pickleball, and I know other sports in there as well, but I want to focus on those two. I mean, with golf, you really don't have a partner. Your opponent might be weather or, other conditions that might add elements to the game. But obviously in pickleball, you have an opponent. Sometimes you have a partner when you're playing doubles. Uh, do your goals change depending on whether you have an opponent or not? And does it change your focus? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, sure. I mean, in golf, it is just me. Everything is dependent on my ability to play the golf course. And obviously, there's a huge mental side. But sure, in pickleball, I'm going to change my strategy based on my opponent. I might focus on certain shots based on my opponent. So a lot of it is very opponent based. And there are definitely some people I'm less okay losing to. And that certainly plays a role as well. So I may possibly change my goals, but that's not necessarily, I will say, I really shouldn't pay attention to who is on the other side of the net. I mean, their skill set I should pay attention to, but who that individual is really shouldn't affect me. But it is hard to not let that impact. Just because I feel like if I feel like it's unacceptable to lose a match, then I put more pressure on myself to win it. And that can have a negative effect on my play. Versus if I just treat everybody the same way, then you can just focus on play and how to win the match instead of who the person is.
Yeah, and that's really good that you touch also on mental. I think a lot of people forget that the mental part of the game is just as important as your skills in setting mental goals. I think that is a big one. I think for me, one of the things that I have tried my best. I say try my best because I always talk about with my clients control what you can control. Mm-hmm. The things that you can't control, you it's like you gotta let it go. And I'm like, I am the worst when it comes to that. So it's almost like what does it say? Say as I do, as I say, not as I do. Yeah. So it's kind of trying to get in that point where I actually live by my words, that I am going to be okay. If I can't control certain things, I can't, and let it go, because otherwise that sometimes carries on to the next day. And when you're playing, back-to-back days, it's really hard to then get over it. So kind of, okay, if you cannot control what has happened, then move on and focus, and then if it doesn't go the way you want to go, then go back home and get back to work. But you can't change now. And I think that that's where a lot of us do. We'll carry on, if you had a bad day in mix or a bad day in women's, and then you have to play the next day, you don't play well the next day. Well, duh, because you're lingering those thoughts in your head the whole night, and now you're tired because you didn't get a good night of sleep, and then you're upset because you're still thinking about the day before, and that is something that you can't control anymore. Right. It's gone. It's in the past. Yeah.
But it's hard.
Oh, it's absolutely the hardest thing. And that's one thing is techniques that to do that. I literally have found, you've been here now for a few days, and I've found that being outdoors with myself and my thoughts has helped so much. I feel like my mentality in the past, 10 days has changed so much, because when you're doing physical work, I'm out there gardening and doing moving stuff and doing all that. It's just it kind of okay, this is there's so many more things that are important to me that I should be focused on versus the things that I can't control. I can't control, so many things, but there are certain things that I can do a better job at just letting go. Letting go is it's just such a big thing. But maybe, perspective, in a way, better perspective, it does help. So
it does.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you do kind of to calm yourself down and kind of get back to center yourself or something like that? Do you have any strategies?
No, I mean, I just feel like with age
comes wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just growing up, I put an enormous amount of pressure on myself to perform in golf and in school, and I mean, it was extreme. I would play golf, and I feel like, oh my gosh, this one round of golf is going to impact the whole rest of my life.
This is the end.
This is the end. I had college coaches following me. Like, oh my gosh, if I miss a 3-footer, they're not going to want me, and just it was horrible.
Oh,
and then
sure
if I didn't get an A on a test, I just in my mind I just had to make straight A's. There was no other option. So I was so intense, and then intense in college too. And really after that, I calmed down.
Yeah.
And I found pickleball, and I just felt like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. It's a release. Pickleball was a release for me. And I've tried really hard to keep that
mentality.
Yeah, that mentality that pickleball is a release. Now it's obviously it's changed a little bit. Pickleball's gotten much more competitive. There's a lot more money coming into it, and it's hard not to go back to the way I was and say, I've got to work on this. I've got to put this many hours into pickleball a week, and start training and do all these things. But at the end of the day, I'm doing this because I love it. And if I put that amount of pressure on myself, then it's not going to be that for me. So I think that's really what I just think about what school and golf was to me back in the day. I'm like, that's not where I am right now.
Yeah.
So.
No, and that's good. Yeah, because I think people forget easily, and that's one of the things that I had talked about is like the moment that I start changing who I am, the things that I believe in, that's when it's like, no, this is not working out, because then you're not happy with yourself, and that is the worst feeling. I feel like then you're like, okay, who have I become and why? And that's the part where I think we all are so hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
And because I used to think of more so, and I still remember it to this day, and you probably don't even think about it, but I do. I always think about how, like, the things that I would say or do that would impact you or anybody that I was around, because I always thought about, like, oh my gosh, I am such a horrible person because
just see, I thought you were an amazing partner.
I know, but I would always because I knew that, and I understand better the more we got to know each other, that you put a lot of pressure on yourself. And I'll never forget the day that you told me that you wanted to win for me. You told me that, and I was like, oh my gosh, hold on. And I was like, no, you need to win. You want to win for you, not for me. And I just remember thinking, like, am I that terrible person that puts that much pressure on the partner to want to win for me?
The worst thing though is US Open, you get the extra money for the Triple Crown, and then they always put us last. Thinking, oh my gosh, this is totally dependent on me.
No, it was never. And I just remember, like you were crying, like nationals. Remember?
Yeah.
You were crying in front of like it was. Oh gosh, it was like 4 years ago, and I just remember, like, oh my gosh, like and then I came over, and you're like, I just wanted to win for you, and I was like, oh no. And so anyways, that this is the part where I realized, like, and this is where that has been a big impact for me, to change that. I need to know that, like, when we step on the court, then no matter what the outcome, it doesn't change our relationship, because ultimately that's the most important thing, always been the most important thing for me. And that's what makes me happy. And win or lose, that does not reflect of who we are. Right. And that was like, oh gosh, like,
but just so everybody knows, I did that to myself.
I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember, like, holy moly. But at the same time, I know that I get super competitive, and I get to the point where like when I am in that zone, I'm like, just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, and that's where I was like, okay, no, like, seriously, like, stop. But anyhow, and I want one person. I'm sure that there's many out there that I don't forget things. I remember every single match. I remember in the past 6 years. I probably know all of them and everything that happened. It's pretty bad. Like I can recall.
I have a selective memory.
You have a selective
Yes.
memory. Perfect. See, I wish I would remember just like the good, the good, not like some of the bad ones are the ones that I remember the most because it's always like, how did we lose that? And it's just, again, it's just like part of me. I've always been that way where most people, I find interesting when I talk about a match that, it had a negative impact or a positive impact, and people are like, what are you talking about? Oh, sorry. But
I mean, you want to remember it enough to learn from it,
Yeah.
but then you do want to.
yeah,
Not ideal.
because to me it's like, oh my gosh, I acted like a complete awful person, and people like say like, what are you doing? Like, I was like, oh, I guess it wasn't that bad. But anyways, but this is the part where just moving on and forgetting, or not forgetting, but like learning from it. That's a big one. But anyways, all right, Eddie, we can talk for days here. So what do we got? Anything out there?
Yeah, actually, a couple great questions have come in, and by the way, I'm loving this. Just kind of seeing the dynamic between you two, both off the court and talking about being on the court. It's really cool. This actually, there's a couple questions here. The first one comes from the one and only Stephanie Lane, actually, and Stephanie asked, "This is a good one. It's about the mental side of things." Stephanie asked, if I can pull it up here.
And
All
Stephanie,
right.
by the way, we have all the Hoops in town, all the Tennessee people.
All the Tennessee folks, huh? Stephanie wants to know, do either of you prefer
Oh yeah.
not to look at the bracket ahead of heading to the court, or do you like to have time to develop? And then I lost it. That's as far as I got. But I'm assuming what she's asking about is, do you guys like to look at the bracket ahead of time, or not, and to develop your strategy against other teams, or do you just kind of like to go into it blind and figure it out as you go?
I think it's better to look at the draw and have some sort of a strategy. And obviously, we don't get to see them until the morning of. But the sooner you look, the sooner you can start thinking about what the best way to do against those teams you might see will be.
Yeah, and for me, it's very similar. I don't go too much into detail because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, the day is like, okay, I know my first match, and that's all that matters at the moment. And then because of the way pickleball is, you kind of have a little bit of time because you have to, like, you may think that this is going to happen, but because also, like, with so many different teams, so many different changes, there's so many upsets that have been happening that you can't even look that far ahead, and you shouldn't either.
Yeah.
So this kind of like, okay, what's my first match of the day, and then we'll go from there. But back in the day, I guess you could kind of figure it out, like what. But now it's like,
I am a little superstitious when it comes to that. I don't like to assume that I'm going to win.
Yeah, and that's the part that sometimes is worse, because then if you look too far ahead and now you're like thinking like, okay, this is who I'm going to play, and then you end up having a terrible first or second match, and then, okay, well, we lost, I'm not going to play that team anymore. So focusing on like that first match, I think that's pretty important. And then everybody now is like, every match is tough. So you have to like be ready. That's good.
Yeah, great question. Keep them coming, guys. We have another high-profile question, and this one comes from Courtney Palermo. I haven't gotten used to saying Palermo as her last name yet, but she says, "Hi, Corinne. So I play with my man too." She's obviously referring to you, well, her and Paul, and she's referring to this question to you because you play with Adam. And she says, "I feel like, personally wise, our partnerships are pretty similar. Do you feel like the communication between you and Adam comes easy, or is it more of a challenge to communicate? Oh, and hey, boss." She wanted to give you a shout out too there, Simone.
I think it's easier to communicate with Adam, just because I'm really comfortable bouncing ideas off of him, and I think he feels the same way with me. And I wouldn't say I necessarily feel that way with everyone. So I would say that's definitely a positive. The downside to playing with your significant other is that life can kind of make its way onto the pickleball court. And so, if for some reason maybe we had a bad morning, then it's hard to just leave that behind. Yeah. And I found, I got pretty worn out at the end of this last year, and I will say my attitude was pretty horrible. And it definitely affected Adam. And that was hard because I didn't want to impact him at all, but it's just hard to totally separate, feelings and then what's happening on the court. So definitely some huge upside to playing with a significant other, but definitely some negatives as well. And I think, this last year was a learning experience. Moving forward into the next year, we're pretty aware of what's good and bad for us when it comes to the pickleball partnership. So I think being aware of those things, we can try to leave behind the bad and just have the good on the court.
I mean, the dynamic of you two, I think it's great. I do believe, of course, always looking out for you. I think Adam treats you really well, and he's super supportive. He always says, like, whenever you miss a shot, he will say something, and it's never, I feel like, never really like putting you down, which is huge. But I can see how he also is a feeler. Mm-hmm. So if you are feeling down, he's gonna absorb. Like he's probably not unable, but it's hard for him to pull you up because he feels your pain. He takes it and like keeps it with him, and so that sometimes because of that, he knows way too much, and that's where he then takes it with him. So, yeah.
But now that I'm aware of that, when it comes to pickleball this next year, I've scheduled better, so I think it's going to be a lot easier to stay positive throughout the whole year when it comes to pickleball, which will definitely help us on the court.
Yeah. And newlyweds, Paul and Courtney.
Yes.
They're still going through the honeymoon phase, so.
Well, that's a good question. Is it easier to play during the honeymoon phase or after you come out of it? I'd love to know that.
I'm sure. It's like there's no way that Paul is gonna say, once you get past that, it's like much easier to be more critical and to kind of speak up your mind before he may think something, but he won't dare to say it. He knows that that will affect later on. So yeah.
That's great. We had a nice comment from Wes Gabrielson. He just wanted to say, "Stop smiling, ladies. Haha, miss you too."
Wes. Oh, yeah, we go way back with Wes.
Yes, the very beginning.
The very beginning.
Question here from Andy Jones. What's the first tournament you are playing together?
Well, it depends. It might be the Punta Gorda APP in February, but if it's not that one, then it'll be the PPA event in North Carolina in May, beginning of May.
Back in Corinne's backyard.
Yes.
So it might be my backyard or hers, or both. We'll see.
I'm looking forward to it. This isn't necessarily about goals or goal setting, but we have a question here from, is it Line Dumas? Sorry if I'm butchering your name there. And they ask, from your experience, until what age can an older player continue to improve?
It's really better for you.
I don't think age. I think it's more, we talk about this. Age really isn't a factor as much as mobility, because if you are 60, 70, whatever, but you still have your mobility, I think you can continue to improve. Of course, often when people get older, then mobility decreases, and that is a it's kind of detrimental to your game. Unfortunately, pickleball, as small as the court is, being able to move is important. So I think if you feel that your mobility is still you're still going well even at 70, because I've seen players who are older and they move really well and they continue to get better, is when that adjusting as you start to not be able to change direction as easily, or even sprinting forward as easily, or going back on overheads. I think that that's when you kind of have to work on staying, not getting worse. I think it's more maintaining. But yeah, my experience has been that I've had people who are older and they continue to get better because their mobility is still there. So I think that's a big one.
Great question. Here's another question too that's actually specific to goal setting, and I think this is a fantastic question. This is coming from KT Hohaya, and KT asks, on the goal topic, do you have both per game individual goals? Example, no service errors, one return error, no more than 2 third drives, no more than 5 unforced errors, or team goals in a match? Can you guys talk a little bit about that, about like specific goals during matches?
I mean, I definitely have general goals that would apply to any match. I don't want to miss a serve or return. But I would say, I mean, I don't want to make unforced errors, but I'm certainly not out there, counting my unforced errors. I think that'd be way too much. I mean, I think if you ever wanted to know stats like that, you would need somebody watching your match and keeping them for you. But I have found that for me, something like that is way too much. I had to do it in golf, and I'm a little bit obsessive. I became obsessed with my stats, and I'd be out there on the course thinking about them. So, I mean, you definitely find what works for you. I would say, going into this new year, there are things that I'm working on, and probably most of my goals have to do with implementing what I'm working on in tournament play and doing it successfully. And that would be my main focus. And then obviously, per match, I have my expectations, what I would like to happen. And I have those per match goals, which would, winning, maybe score based on who I'm playing.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think for most of our clients, we talk about how that is so important, not becoming so obsessed with how many errors you're making, because then you become very tight and very tentative. And usually and especially like with serving, oh my gosh, the serving yips, we've dealt with so many people that have that. So it's more about being aware, of course, being self-aware that if you're making a ton of errors because you're just overhitting everything, then that's different. But try not to focus on every single shot, because then, like I said, you become too self-aware, and then now you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. So I think for me, when I go out, I'm trying my best to focus on how am I gonna win? What is my strategy? What am I doing? So what am I doing wrong, in the sense of, am I attacking the wrong spots on this person? Am I pulling the trigger too soon? Kind of like those things during the match, versus like how many errors have I made, or how many returns have I missed, or kind of more tactics versus the technique itself, I guess.
That's
Yes,
a
I
great
think
answer.
focusing on technique tournament play is a horrible idea.
And I've had people ask me about the serve during tournament play, and I'm like, this is not the time. We're not gonna talk about how your serve is not going well. It's like, just swing, hit for the middle of the box, and then we'll worry about later, because that becomes a big issue.
It's great information. Why don't we do one more question here? And this one is kind of around goal setting, but a little bit more about partner dynamics. And this is from Shirley Brown Kowalski. And Shirley asks, what kinds of things do you do or try to know about playing with a new partner?
So for me, there are the obvious things like which side of the court they might prefer to be on, or maybe certain shots that they would like me to take. But I also really am aware of the emotional side of things, knowing what my partner needs from a mental standpoint, maybe. So do they like being pumped up, but they prefer we mostly keep to ourselves, or do they need me to be super positive, things like that? And probably because I know what I need. And it's important to me, and I've really chosen my partners based on what I need from the emotional side. So I would say I normally have a conversation with my partner before we ever step on the court in relation to those things. And usually I just bring up what I need and then we go from there.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think for me, being older, I've always been the kind of the nurturer on the court, and I truly believe in intensity level. That comes from my coach back in my Fresno State days. He always talked about how people perform at their best when everybody's number is different. So intensity level is a huge one. So I always, Corinne can't, she will not stand an 8 or a 9, because she will get exhausted. Because if she's playing hyped up, like super hyped up, you'll get, yeah. But also your tendency sometimes was to go down, and you can't play at that heartbeat where it's not, it's just here. So I think yours, if I remember studying it, it was like a 6-7 is where you lived pretty well. And some people, like Ben is like a pretty 6-7. He can't, if he gets too hyped up, then the next point is a downer. But also being like too down, then it's like, oh, that is not good, because then you kind of become very just the feet kind of don't move anymore. And so the intensity level for me is always the first thing that if I have a new person. Oh, I have a really good example. When I played with JW, I believe that kid is amazing, by the way, but he plays very serious, and I think that kind of gets him tighter and more nervous. So my goal when I was playing with him was to make him laugh. It was to make him smile, because I wanted him to play relaxed. So I wasn't aware of intensity level, but it was more like I needed to make him laugh and make him smile, so he would play free and just kind of be swinging. And I had so much fun doing that. I was like, oh, that's a good one. That's a good goal for me. So yeah, but I remember a lot of times it was, whenever you got serious, I knew I gotta get you out of the serious, because you get serious, you get you
get tight. And sure, if you kept it lighter, if our interaction was lighter, then I definitely find that.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that was my biggest thing. I was I had to be aware of myself, because if I got too this is where oh my gosh, I'm so. Because I remember I think it was because it was the first tournament that I hosted, the one at home. And I remember that I was I was so intense and so serious that it affected our chemistry. And I was just okay, this does not work. But that's where you learn that partnership, it's a huge one, that it's more important, not about so much about what people how they can hit the ball, but what's going to get them to hit the ball better. And that part gets, I I think, underestimated and kind of pushed aside more so.
It's overlooked, I think. I mean, I think you look at a partner and most people focus on the play. You know, they want the best player possible, but you also want someone that you're going to play well with. That's just as important as your partner playing well.
Absolutely.
So yes, both things are certainly important.
Yeah, because like in tennis, I know that two great players do not necessarily make really great partners. And I think pickleball is the same way. You can play two of the greatest players together, but if their chemistry, if their interaction is not on point, they can lose to anybody. So that is, and again, of course, you have to have a combination because you have to have the skill set, but you have to have that chemistry that you're going to be on the same page. And that's a huge one.
This is absolutely fantastic information here. I can't believe we have the both of you sharing with the world. And if I can steal the attention away for a second here, our goal is to keep all this information coming to you guys for free. And in order to do that, one way to help support us is to actually go out there and visit SimoneJardim.store. You can get awesome things like mugs, shirts, this amazing hoodie that I'm wearing here right now. It'll really help keep this content coming for you guys for free. So definitely go out there and check it out, please.
Thank you, Eddie, as usual. Awesome. Just so supportive. I have to say that our lives are connected in so many ways. This morning, I sent Eddie a photo. What was the photo, Eddie?
It was a photo. So for those of you guys that don't know, my parents live literally right down the street from Simone. And it was a photo of my dad power walking outside of the community. So that was pretty funny. He looked like he was going.
And he was on fire because I dropped off Landon. I dropped off Landon. And then I turned around to go. I mean, it's a pretty big distance, and I turned around to go back to the condo, and he was already past it. I was like, wow, how did David go all the way around and is already here? He was booking
embarrass
it.
Him real quick. Yep. There he is.
Shout out to this guy. I mean, honestly, he was speed walking at a really good pace. So
That's
good for him.
Love
yeah, and also I gotta give a huge shout out to David and Val. They gave me an amazing present for Christmas. It's the halo. I feel like my skin looks better with all this lighting.
It's very flattering,
right? I feel like wow. I feel like I don't know. The face looks a little better. I mean, you always look young, but I'm aging quickly. These kids.
No, I've got lines.
I'm laughing so much, squinting. Those are laughing lines, yeah. But yeah, no, thank you. Awesome present and very for what we're doing here. The theme is perfect. So kisses.
It's great stuff. Plenty of good questions tonight. Thank you guys so much. This was full of great information. Anything else you want to leave the world with tonight?
Just very thankful that I get to hang out with Corinne and Adam for we're together for a week. I think that they'll probably be exhausted by the end of the week, not just because of me, but the dogs, the kids, and working on putting them to work.
It's fun.
And they are really good at what they do. So if you guys are in North Carolina and you want to learn from the best, these two are amazing. And that's why I like to surround myself with people that teach well. And it's been such a pleasure. And of course, such a pleasure to get to know Adam. I've known Corinne, but the guy is something else. So
great stuff.
I'm right there with you. Check. So I hope everybody has a good night, and we'll see you next week. And we'll go back to talking about some technique and some strategy. So be ready for that and enjoy the rest of the week.
Well, thank you. Goodbye, everybody.